Alrighty then. Another year, another championship. I hope you're well rested. Well, as much as you can be for someone who has to spend half their life in the gym anyway. Let's get to it.
Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to episode of my F1 2018 career mode, episode number 85 today for the start of Season 5 of my career mode here at the Australian Grand Prix. If you guys did miss the previous episode, then the finale of Season 4, be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But it's all reset now, all in the past. Season 4 was a very awesome season, a very long and gruesome season, really, and it was so close. But Season 5 might just be set to be even better with not much of a regulation change going into this season. The cars are going to be super close, especially the fight between obviously the reigning Constructors champions here at Ferrari and all the other top teams, Red Bull, Renault and McLaren in the top fold there. But heading into this brand new season, we have a bit of a surprise. Sebastian Vettel is back in town. Vettel will be my brand new teammate for Season 5 here in Ferrari. Riva Bene and Ferrari feeling that the chemistry just wasn't right between me and Raikkonen, and maybe myself and Sebastian Vettel can complement each other a bit more, or even maybe fire each other up a little bit more and niggle each other to some better performances this season. So the German, the Weltmeister, four-time world champion, is back in the other side of the garage, number 5 on Ferraris, and I'm very excited to go ahead against him in Season 5. You guys well know, if you watch me for a while now, myself and Vettel have had many on-track battles in the F1 game, and looking forward to many more this season. And we're going to have to also work as a team to try and retain this Constructors Championship. Obviously, we come in as Constructors champions here at Ferrari. Obviously, Hulkenberg comes into this season as the reigning Drivers' World Champion, so things have changed a little bit, and Renault and Red Bull and McLaren might be on the upper hand as we go into the start of this season. You can see all three of those teams have made improvements over the winter. Of course, we decided to put all our resources into the reliability, the regulation change, and try and get that as best as we can, because reliability and the kind of durability of the parts was a bit of an issue at the end for us. We had to take some engine penalties, which ultimately might have cost us the championship at the end of last season, so we focused a lot on that. And so we come into this season now the 4th best team, with a little bit of work to do perhaps against the works Renault team, who are pretty much level pegging with Red Bull, with McLaren not too far behind. You can see it is so close, you can hardly separate us there, and so that's why I think Season 5 might be somehow even crazier and closer than Season 4 in terms of results, race round to race round. But we'll have to wait and see how that all shapes up, obviously. But for us, in terms of car development, we'll be focusing a lot on, I think, aerodynamics. Chassis-wise, you can see, well, okay, we can still improve in some aspects, but we're pretty well matched against Red Bull and Renault. Renault really improved quite a lot in Season 4 in their chassis, I feel. Aerodynamically, though, we're really behind. We're even behind the likes of Toro Rosso. Obviously, they've improved quite vastly. So I think that's the main kind of area of improvement for us, is going to be reducing the drag. It did feel like a lot of the time our car had a lot of drag on the main straights. So I think that's where we're going to have to improve, and then also adding some downforce here and there. But we're going to dive straight to this season then. In Q1, you can see already no love lost between myself and Dan Ricciardo there. He gets in my way on my one and only flying lap in Q1 here, so thankfully that didn't hold me up too much, and we are going to get through into Q2. But straight away, literally the first flying lap, and already we're bumping wheels there, and so yeah, definitely already a bit of tension. Obviously Red Bull were looking like maybe the likely guys to take the run to the championship last season before they kind of faltered, so maybe there's already a bit of kind of, anger already brewing in Season 5 from Red Bull there. But we're now trying to navigate our way through Q2. In terms of the car feeling pretty damn good. Obviously no regulation change for any of the major parts of the R&D tree, the engine, aero or chassis, so the car's really improved vastly since we last came to Melbourne there. But there was a tinge of understeer here and there. I don't know, that was more my setup maybe, or maybe that I was asking a bit too much of the car. But once again, we get nearly held up by our new teammate Vettel in the other Ferrari there in the high-speed chicane. So I think Melbourne just for some reason at the moment this season has a lot of traffic problems for me in qualifying. I never remember there being that many traffic issues in previous seasons gone by, but that lap wasn't good enough. We're going to have to improve on a second lap, so we burn another set of ultra-soft tyres then, unfortunately. But we are going to come through then. At the moment we're P13, but across the line we'll be up into P8 there, just ahead of Vettel. Eventually Vettel does improve quite a lot there, and actually we only just get through to the top 10. So kind of a breath of sigh of relief, really, because that would have been a little bit embarrassing. It looks like Fernando Alonso there has actually picked up a 5-place grid penalty for something. Maybe he blocked someone even worse than what Ricciardo and Vettel did to myself. So wherever Alonso finishes in the top 10, he'll be 5 places back. So that'll be bad news for him and McLaren to start off the brand new season here in Season 5. But on our start of our one and only flying lap in Q3 then, I actually back out and let Hulkenberg through there because I want some more clean air. So a little bit of tactical driving at the very start. But you can see everyone else has already set a lap time. Alonso is actually on provisional pole, so that'll be really harsh for the Spaniard. If he gets pole position, he'll obviously get knocked down 5 places, so that's going to be really harsh if he maintains pole. And so we get on then with our one and only attempt now to qualify in the top 10 of the grid and hopefully start off the season in a good place. But obviously on paper with the 4th best car now going to this year, so I don't have too much of hope of maybe getting to the top end on the front row or even the second row. But if we can try and get on the 3rd row at least, you know, P5 or 6, that'd be very good for us. As we go through to the last corner, then run to the line, we're going to derate a little bit on the ERS just as we cross the line, and we're going to get through up into P6 then, just ahead of Sebastian Vettel. So good to start off out qualifying Vettel then, but very, very equally matched then actually, so that could be a really nice fight for this season with that well matched all round. But to my surprise then, Fernando Alonso on pole, so he'll be down 5 places, remember, but it's Pierre Gasly in second who will inherit pole position, remember, and the Toro Rosso, I don't know where he's pulled that out because Hartley got knocked out in Q2, so obviously we know how good the Toro Rosso has really improved over the last 2 seasons, but specifically Gasly's AI has been in another planet, almost like Fernando Alonso's AI. He's just outperforming the car by about 5/10 it would seem, and he's up ahead of the Red Bull car, Ricciardo in 3rd place, Verstappen out of Q2 as well seemingly because he's not in the top 10 here, so a calamity for Red Bull in that kind of sense. And both Renaults, I was surprised really because I would have thought both Hulkenberg and Sainz would have been up there, but Sainz a little bit slow behind both us Ferrari cars, and 2 Saubers making it to the top 10. So Sauber, obviously they caught up to Haas last season and they got away from Force India in the R&D tree. So we'll see if this is how it's going to shape up for the kind of first few rounds of the season, but very intriguing results then in this first top 10 shootout of this season nonetheless. But we'll get on to the first race then, on to Sunday, and let's just see how it goes then. Obviously it's the first race, so anything could happen, reliability issues, crazy results, all that. It doesn't really matter too much. We're just trying to survive the first race and come home with a good kind of result and haul the points if we can.
New drivers, new cars, and a new Formula One season. But it's the same Albert Park that we've come to know and love for more than 2 decades now that hosts the first round of a 21-race championship, taking us from here in Melbourne, Australia, across the globe before we eventually reach the season finale at Yas Marina Circuit in Abu Dhabi. Just south of Melbourne's downtown business centre is the one and only Albert Park Circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy circuit with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake and a couple of good passing opportunities here as well, thanks in part to the DRS zones into turns 1, 3 and 13. I'm joined today in the commentary box, as I will be throughout this season, by a great racing driver, former F1 competitor, and who was world champion once upon a time as well, and an all-round top chap. It's the one and only Anthony Davidson. And tell me, here we are, first Grand Prix of the season, the first time racing these cars. So what are the big questions that need to be answered here, in your view?
First of all, Crofty, and thanks for the glowing introduction. I just want to say it's a real privilege to be here, and I can't wait to see what this competitive field has in store for us this season. Now, to answer your question, obviously there's the question of performance in race trim, but really this is going to be all about reliability. It's the first Grand Prix of the season, don't forget. You're pushing all your new components to their limits. Formula One cars are full of very sophisticated but also very sensitive technology. So the most important thing today is to get to the end of the race, keep everything in good condition and try to stay out of trouble while you're at it.
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. Pierre Gasly lines up on pole position, with Daniel Ricciardo slotting in alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hulkenberg, Van Dorn, the engineer, and Alonso. They've taken a grid penalty. Sainz, Leclerc, and Marcus Ericsson, Magnussen, Hartley, Valtteri Bottas, and Grosjean, Verstappen, Perez, Esteban Ocon, and Lewis Hamilton. Sirotkin and Lance Stroll rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So with Alonso's 5-place grid penalty, we now move up into P5 then, staring at the back of the Renault Hulkenberg, the man who beat us to the World Championship last season. So very interesting view for the very first round. But Melbourne, of course, tough on tyres somewhat. So the strategy is going to be a 2-stop here. Our engineers think we can do 2 sets of ultras to super soft. So that's interesting. A lot more aggressive than we've done last year. But of course, this time last year, we maybe didn't have as good of as a car in terms of upgrades. So maybe the tyre wear will be a little bit less in terms of compared to Season 4. So we're going to try that. We're going to kind of, take their word for it. We're going to pit a little bit early maybe for the ultras. Going to just move that first pit stop a little bit earlier just to try and get an undercut and try and avoid a little bit of infighting and kind of traffic maybe in the first stint of this thing. It's going to be a very interesting first lap then with the Toro Rosso on pole position. Obviously the Renaults I expect to be pretty fast in race pace trim, and the McLarens, well, I just don't know because they were meant to kind of be there last year, but they just kept on dropping off every single race with some bad luck. So let's see. And also, how will Sebastian Vettel do back in the Ferrari car after taking a year sabbatical? But let's get into this then. The start of Season 5. Everything is reset. Brand new clean slate. And it's time to go again for a brand new F1 World Championship as we go to 5 red lights for round number 1, the Australian Grand Prix of this brand new season of F1 2018 career mode. 5 red lights are out and we're underway. It's a good enough start for us, but an even better one for the likes of Stoffel Van Dorn. Hulkenberg down the inside. It's 3 wide into turn 1 between Gasly, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, and Hulkenberg comes through in first place. We just about managed to avoid the back end of Ricciardo there as he gets squeezed out quite aggressively by Pierre Gasly there. We're side by side with the Aussie man, the home favourite, but he dives it down the inside of Van Dorn in a desperate attempt to get back up into third place, and it might just work out for him. The Red Bull, maybe with superior downforce there, he pushes Van Dorn out of the way. Those two side by side now, and he actually squeezed out Van Dorn to the point where now I can get the jump on the Belgian man in the McLaren down the inside. We just about nip it through there, and we're up into P4. Meanwhile, Vettel side by side with Fernando Alonso, kind of you could say his arch nemesis in Formula 1 in a way, and Alonso just gets ahead of the German. So at the moment, Vettel needs to get back up to speed in this race trim car, but at the moment then it's Nico Hulkenberg that will lead the way from the Australian Grand Prix, from Gasly, Ricciardo, and then myself, who are now being chased after Van Dorn on lap number 3. Doesn't take Van Dorn long to try and flex the muscles of that McLaren car. Around the outside he goes. We're going to try our best to squeeze him out on the left-hand side, but he's got the speed, he's got the momentum on the outside there, and I just tighten up the corner for myself in a way, but Van Dorn does very well to kind of pinch me into that apex, and so we're unable to fight him too much. And through the last corner, I get hit with a horrible amount of dirty air there, a lot of understeer in the car, and so we're down to P5. So the McLaren's really looking like they want to fight right now in this race. And with Alonso and Vettel keeping me honest behind in the pressure, I'm desperately trying to get past Van Dorn once again. So DRS open on the back straight around the outside. This will be a very audacious pass. There we go, the long way round, but Van Dorn has the better line and he's able to keep it ahead. But we're going to try a luck there in 5th gear. We're going to feather throttle on the outside, and we just about make it through. Lock up on the front left to avoid hitting Van Dorn's side pod, and we just can't make it work there. But we narrowly miss any kind of contact with Van Dorn, and so in the end just fair fighting and some lovely racing there, but just unable to make it work. So maybe second time lucky, maybe into the next lap then, as Van Dorn goes very defensive into turn 1 then, very slow. We tap his rear end as he's so slow off the corner on the exit of turn 1. So now we have a second bite of the cherry with DRS here on the second straight into the hairpin of turn 3 down the inside. This time going to have to try and force him to the left, and we're going to have to go again on the outside of a corner, but this time we find the grip there. We just about make it through before having to go on the curb in 4th gear, and we're up the order once again, back up into P4. We go a bit defensive on Van Dorn, and we've now got a mega train behind us, so you can see maybe I'm holding up this pack a little bit as I don't have the pace at the moment, and Ricciardo and Gasly and Hulkenberg have really waltzed away in the top 3 there. But to be fair, the McLarens haven't exactly been flying past me and just getting away from me. I was able to keep up with Van Dorn and keep him honest there, so I think this is really just maybe the delta time difference between Red Bull and Renault up ahead, and also Gasly, strangely, because remember, Hartley's not even I think Hartley's just about in the top 10, but his teammates right up there in 2nd place somehow still. So yeah, ever the kind of enigma is Pierre Gasly's AI, just like Alonso's AI was in season 2 and 3. But speaking of Alonso, here he goes now, maybe trying to pass his teammate now for P5. This will be on the outside there. The two McLarens neck and neck in the high-speed chicane. Alonso, though, gets squeezed out by his teammate, and so Van Dorn, surprisingly, is still the better of the two McLarens so far in this race. So we now come in for early pit stop on lap 6, even earlier maybe than I wanted to, because my engineer said we should maybe come in, and so I'm going to trust my engineer there on that strategy and try and get an undercut and just try and maintain this position ahead of both McLarens and Vettel there. I was kind of hoping at some point Vettel would try and attack Alonso and catch him napping a little bit, as I was kind of effectively backing Van Dorn and Alonso up into him, but he didn't really fancy it at the moment, so maybe he's still getting kind of used to things here, but definitely for sure my pace was degrading a little bit with the tyre wear there on the ultra soft tyres, but we're back on another set of ultras, and like I said, I'm going to trust my engineers on this. This is a bit of a, way more aggressive strategy than I'm used to at Melbourne there, but the strategy sometimes doesn't lie, and it's sometimes the better way to go, so we'll trust it for this very first race and see how it goes as we go down the inside of Sergio Perez then with a nice move on the back straight of DRS, and meanwhile in that same exact moment we overtake the Force Indy car. Vettel was in, Alonso's in, and also Carlos Sainz. So Vettel onto a set of ultra soft tyres as well. Good pit stop for him, and he doesn't get held up too much by any cars down the pit lane, but someone who will get held up is also Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. So Vettel has jumped Alonso in the pit lane there. So as we emerge out in P10 then, it'll be Vettel the car right behind me, Alonso behind him then, along with Carlos Sainz. So now just the question is, where is Van Dorn? Has Vettel done enough to jump Van Dorn in one lap's undercut? As we move on to lap 10, there is Van Dorn. We're just going to come out ahead of him, and that's a bit too close for Vettel then, and so Van Dorn slots in a Ferrari sandwich then. So it's myself, Van Dorn, Vettel, Alonso, Carlos Sainz are in the pecking order, with Ricciardo still in P3 trying to chase down Pierre Gasly for P2 in this Grand Prix. But now later into this Grand Prix, Van Dorn down the inside of the high-speed chicane. We break a little bit early, tried to get a bit of a switch back and maybe try and just get the acceleration down faster than Van Dorn, but it doesn't work out. He actually literally gets the best exit I've seen off that corner on the high-speed chicane, and I'm unable to get that. He goes very slow then and defensive into the next corner on the back straight there, on the right-hander, and so holds me up somewhat. So that frustrated me a little bit, because I thought maybe for a second I could have got him back there, but he does a good job. And so at the moment I'm being backed up back into Sebastian Vettel, who's also got Alonso for company right behind him. And so at this moment in time I'm feeling a bit of pressure maybe to let Vettel through, maybe see if he can do something about Van Dorn, because he's looking like he might have a bit more pace than me at this stage of the Grand Prix, and so I don't want to hold him up if he can maybe have a go and overtake Van Dorn fair and square. So I'm going to brake a little bit early and try and let him through as easy as I can, but he squeezes me left a little bit. I don't appreciate that, because that makes me go a little bit deep, and so Alonso finds himself down the inside. We have to defend against Fernando, and we do so quite well though, and so that was a little bit more pressure than I wanted to, but Vettel's passed, and so I'll now try and see if Vettel can get past Van Dorn. Of course, if he can't, later on the Grand Prix I will try and re-overtake Vettel if I can, but for now, clearly, the way that Vettel's got away from me already, I think he's got much more pace than me at this stage of the Grand Prix. And of course, the only way we won the Constructors' title last year is by making sure we both score well, so I'm not going to be a bit kind of, salty about that. At the moment, he's got the pace on me fair and square, so we'll see about it later on this race, but for now, we just try and do a job of holding up Fernando Alonso if we can in this next phase of the Grand Prix. As the tyres start to go off a little bit, have to also control that and get to about, hopefully, lap 17, I would say. But before we get to lap 17, we still have some defending to do on lap 13 here, with Alonso right up my shop. We go a little bit deep into that next right-hander, and so on the back straight now, the curve towards the high-speed chicane, Alonso is going to try and send one down my inside there. We're going to have to keep this in and try and pull it side by side. We just about managed to squeeze through there with a little cut on the curbing, but Alonso now is going to come back through for the switch on the right-hand side. Yellow flags up ahead though, and we're 3 wide momentarily, because Carlos Sainz is around my outside then, and so we're literally in a Spanish sandwich there for a split second. Yellow flags out, so I was actually quite confused at why Alonso was able to even try the move there, because surely we would all be under yellow flags, but I think it was maybe just before we tried the move there, but no harm done. We're still there ahead of him in P6 at the moment, but he's going to come back now with DRS on this main straight. We go defensive to the inside, then as we enter lap 14, we're still going to be alongside him, maybe just about into turn 1, as Alonso locks up though on the front right there, goes a bit wide and nearly off circuit, and so has to give up the corner, and we remain in P6. And now Alonso invites himself into some pressure with Carlos Sainz trying to go around the outside. I think that is, yes, and Fernando has to do some defending there as Carlos Sainz tries to find the move on the outside. He's still got the nose in there just about with his front wing and front tyre, but Alonso is just able to keep it ahead. But now both of them might also feel some pressure from Brent Hartley. The other Toro Rosso is finally turning up in this Grand Prix then with some good race pace, but up ahead then, Vettel really has got away from us in this stint, trying to chase after Stoffel Van Dorn. P3 is still Dan Ricciardo, the home favourite. Second place, Pierre Gasly Gasly. First place is Nico Hülkenberg. So the reigning world champion is looking very comfortable in that Renault Works car then, at the moment dominating this Australian Grand Prix after initially getting ahead. And meanwhile, his teammate Carlos Sainz is fancying a pop on Fernando Alonso. Down the inside he went. He tried to make the move. It was 3 wide, I think, for a split second, with Hartley also trying to make a move there. And so is Alonso, surprisingly, feeling the pressure, with Van Dorn, his teammate, usually the inferior one on this game, is the one out in front feeling a bit more comfortable than the other McLaren, because Sainz is really snapping at his heels as we now move on to lap 15 then. So 2 laps earlier than I was maybe wanting to come in, but again my engineers told me to come in for a bit of an undercut, and the Super Soft should be comfortable to go to the end of the race now from here. I'm not too worried about that. It was really more the Ultra Softs I was worried about, and so that's why in reality I was coming in a little bit earlier, maybe because the Ultras were going to lose some pace in these next 2 laps. So super soft to the end of the Grand Prix then. We're just over halfway through this Grand Prix then, and so we're looking pretty good, but at this stage I can see where we need to make improvements in the downforce kind of area of the car. Not only drag reduction, I think we just need some pure downforce actually, because I think now compared to Red Bull and Renault for sure, I think this Ferrari is lacking some downforce. Either way, it's going to be a bit of a compromise between those 2 factors, always drag and downforce. But on lap 17 we stay ahead of Fernando Alonso then into turn 1, but you can see there a lot of understeer in turn 1. But then to my surprise on lap 18 the full safety car is called out there. We've got 19 runners left in this Grand Prix, so someone has retired. Safety car has been called out, the full one, and so we're all going to bunch up, and so this now might be the chance where I get to swap with Sebastian Vettel. Obviously he's not going to let me by easily, but we might have the pace. I feel like I might be better on the supers in general on this game. Quite weirdly actually, because I've always historically been a lot better against AI on the softer compounded tyre, but this year I'm finding I'm kind of best on the middle compounded tyre in most races. So on these super softs I think we might be able to try and gain on Vettel. We're going to be right up his chuff. We've got the temperatures in the tyres actually not pretty damn well, so we might get a good exit. A little bit of understeer from the dirty air though, but in general could have been a lot worse on the exit. We've now got blue flags for Sergio Perez, so he goes down the order. So yellow flags briefly for Perez then as we enter turn 1. Then we turn in a lot more downforce than we had on that previous turn with Alonso there, so maybe the tyres are now gripping in a little bit more, and so now can we try and chase after and overtake Vettel for P5, and maybe even do something about Van Dorn there in P4 behind still Ricciardo yet to pass Gasly. So here Gasly is pretty much embarrassing the Red Bull team at this stage as we now wildly chop away at the steering wheel trying to keep this car in a straight line there. So clearly the dirty air is really affecting things around Melbourne. Obviously that's what you get with a bit of a street circuit, park circuit I guess you could say, around the Albert Parkway. But now we got a retirement for Van Dorn, and we just about narrowly miss him, and so it's a calamity for the McLaren team. Van Dorn in such a good position there, P5, he's out of the Grand Prix, and like I said, it was a dangerous kind of way to park up there, because we only narrowly missed him on the left hand side. It's a bit of a smoke screen there. Vettel gets past on the right, we get past on the left, and he makes some contact with his teammate Alonso there. Bit of a nasty collision. That could have been a lot worse, and that could have been a copycat of what Alonso had in 2016 or whatever it was when he took off into the air. So Alonso can count himself lucky here in this race that he's not out the Grand Prix, and so that's one free position for all of us, and we'll now get right on the heels of Sebastian Vettel then to get up into what will now be P4, not even P5, because we're already there in P5, and now with DRS we're going to make a pass maybe down the inside, but no, we just don't have the pace for the brake zone. But Vettel goes slow and deep into that next right-hander, and so we do make it down the inside and find a way past. And now what on earth, another safety car has been called out in this Grand Prix now for another retirement. It's only 17 runners. Obviously Van Dorn retired. I don't know if that, maybe this safety car's for Van Dorn. Maybe strangely enough, obviously it's only literally the next lap, so maybe Van Dorn parked up in a way where Charlie Whiting didn't think it was safe enough, and so very strangely the second or two I get past Vettel, this safety car's called back out then, and so we're on another restart. This time though I don't get such a good exit, and Ricciardo waltzes away from me in the last corner. Now we're going to be immediately under pressure then from Sebastian Vettel, so after initially overtaking him straight away, we're now going to be maybe right back on pressure with Vettel as here he comes now down the inside in the high-speed chicane. We're neck and neck. It's so close between his side pod and the wall on the right hand side, and he's able to get it through, and I can't do much there. We're going to try and pull through on the next straight and try and make something work, but we just have to follow through. Meanwhile we've got Alonso behind being pressurized by Brent Hartley, and so once again I find myself staring in the back of Sebastian Vettel, but he's looking a little bit weak into that right-hander after that back straight, after the high-speed chicane. So I think, again, we might have to try another pass there in that area of the circuit. But now as we progress through the last few stages of this Grand Prix, then Brendan Hartley, like I said, was pressurising Alonso beforehand when we were fighting Vettel, and here he goes now down the inside of the Spaniard, and the Toro Rosso might just have that. Alonso trying to fight it on the exit, but no, Hartley is past and up ahead of Alonso. Alonso will try to come back at him there. Can Hartley defend to the next corner? He locks up quite badly, and that actually helps him out, pushing Alonso wide, and so the Kiwi man, the Toro Rosso, is going to stay ahead. So brilliant little move there, and the Toro Rossos flexing their muscles once again in Season 5 as now we move back to our POV. Lap 28 of 29 this is, so not long to go in this Grand Prix, and we're getting ever closer to Vettel, but frustratingly just can't make the pass there in that first sector, and like I said, might have to wait until this third sector, and that's exactly where Carlos Sainz is going to try a pass on Alonso. Doesn't make it work, and he actually gets some pressure then from the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. We haven't seen a lot of the Haas cars there, but they still are in the bottom half of the top 10, but Sainz is going to have to follow through now the last corner to try and overtake him, but he gets a worldly, godly exit off the last corner. DRS open, he's going to fly past Alonso then into turn 1. It's going to be a lovely move there, Spaniard on Spaniard, and Carlos Sainz is up the order there, but he's definitely not really shown what he can truly do, as he was the one getting back-to-back wins in the Renault late on in Season 4, and right now at the moment his teammates out there dominating the Grand Prix whilst he's down in P6 or 7, so there's maybe more to come for the other Spaniard in that yellow banana car. But now on the last lap of the Grand Prix, we're going to try and attempt on Vettel here. The last stages, the last sector of the last lap of the Grand Prix, we're neck and neck with Vettel there on the inside, side by side through the next right-hander. Vettel just has it maybe by an inch, a nose, and he's on the inside line. We lock up a little bit and Vettel forces our hand wide, and so Vettel is just about going to hold on there to the glory in this first race. P4, but it's going to be a good tandem finish here for some decent solid points to kick off Season 5 at the Australian Grand Prix.
A great win then for the Renault team today. So, Ant, how exactly did they set themselves apart from the pack today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
As we can see, it's time for the podium, and I can see the Renault team underneath our commentary box going crazy as their drivers walk out. It was a great win, and it means a great deal to this team.
So I can't lie, a little bit frustrated we couldn't get Vettel just at the end, but, you know, some really fun fighting there, and clearly, obviously, both of us, you know, working well. I think we have a good thing going for the Constructors' Championship once again. For the drivers, obviously, for both of us individually, we need to work on this car, definitely. Like I said, I think aerodynamics is going to be where we need to work on, and I think, first of all, is that major drag reduction we can try and purchase next on the R&D tree. But HOCKENHEIM with a very dominating Grand Prix after getting the lead on lap 1, turn 1, but Pierre Gasly, GG's to him, second place, and along with Hartley, it means Toro Rosso leave here in second place of the Constructors behind Renault. So Toro Rosso, you know, with the real surprise result there. Red Bull, you know, okay with Ricciardo, but Verstappen knocks out Q2. Really didn't see much of him in this Grand Prix. Actually, we didn't see him at all, actually. I lied. We didn't see him at all in any replay camera. And McLaren will be disappointed with a DNF, and Alonso slowing down massively at the end of that Grand Prix. Maybe with damage. He might have sustained some damage from Van Dorn that we just didn't see. And so maybe that's why he was slow at the end there. But definitely go back to the drawing board for the Papaya Orange team. But after what I thought was a pretty solid result, Ferrari, I get a reputation decrease there for Ferrari. So these days, visually speaking, on the reputation chart there, my team aren't too happy with how I'm driving, which is odd because I did help deliver them a Constructors' Championship, so I feel like they should be a bit more thankful to me. But there you go. Obviously, Ferrari are one of the top teams, the most established team in Formula 1, so obviously they have high demands, and so if we're not winning, they're probably losing in their eyes, and in Riva Bene eyes, as much as I want to disagree with them. So hopefully we can try and buck up, but I feel like at this first stage of Season 5, things may be more painful and get worse before before they get better, if you know what I mean, because a lot of the upgrades we have now going into the rest of the season are all major updates. There are a few minors here on the aero, but like I said, I want to look onto the drag reduction before I get to downforce, really, on this car, because I feel like most circuits, I think we still do have the sufficient downforce to navigate the corners quite well. I think it's really just a drag reduction thing, and so we're going to wait a little bit and try and bulk up these resource points to actually purchase that ultimate drag reduction update. So compared to other teams in the next few rounds, depending on if they upgrade, we might go a little bit backwards in a way, even though we're kind of staying stationary. But like they say in Formula 1, if you're staying put stationary in R&D, you're pretty much going backwards compared to other teams. And so, like I said, we might have a bit of pain before we get some gain. It's a long season, of course. It's early days, and anything can really happen these first few rounds, of course. Like we always say never in Formula 1. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with that episode. If Ferrari or not, I'm going to say I'm pretty happy with that. So, guys, if you did enjoy that very first race in Season 5 with myself and Sebastian Vettel in the raid of Scuderia Ferrari, then be sure to smash the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, do get subscribed for weekly full-on content. I've been Alfa. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.